Go inside the Crimson Tide with your hosts Rodney Orr and Gary Harris, keeping you informed on everything Alabama. And now, Tider Insider TV.
Now, my new home is Tuscaloosa. Roll Tide.
Another commitment for Alabama. Boy, they keep rolling in. This came last week, but it's a big one, literally. DJ Dale of Clay Chalkville. He released his commitment video on 24/7 Sports, and he is a big get for the Crimson Tide. Again, I stress big, and like 6'2.5", 320-plus pounds. Good evening, everybody, and welcome in to Tider Insider TV, presented each and every week by Buffalo Rock Bottling Company, alongside Rodney Orr from TiderInsider.com. I'm Gary Harris. More on DJ Dale in just a moment, but first, more on Pepsi Zero Sugar, because it's my new go-to. You know what I mean? There's a lot of great Pepsi products like out there, and people see me all the time drinking a Pepsi product, but this is now my go-to. Max Taste, Zero Sugar. Lord knows I got to fight the sugar. You know that, Rodney. Listen to that sound. But it's a little easier to fight the sugar when you got taste like that. You know what I mean?
Definitely.
So pick up some great Pepsi products, including Pepsi Zero Sugar, the next time you're at your local grocery or convenience store. All right, now to DJ Dale. Okay. I've heard anything from 320 to 340. He's a big kid. Let's for official purposes, let's say 6'2.5", 323 pounds, four-star defensive tackle from Pinson. This is a guy that his commitment secured Alabama's hold on the top spot in the recruiting rankings for now. I think they're going to stay there. How big is this latest commitment, the latest of a flurry of high-profile, big-name commitments, and heavy in-state flavor continues too, Rodney, for 2019.
Really does. And, you know, you look at DJ Dale, Gary, and again, you mentioned how big he is. The good thing is he's not a sloppy big. I mean, this guy's really put together well. He may need to lose some weight once he gets here. Scott Cochran will do a tremendous job with him, but I really like him when you look at him physically, Gary. I mean, he has a really outstanding foundation with his legs, and I think he's again, he's not a sloppy guy, and he's a big, powerful guy that on the inside, they're hard to find.
Look at him move. I've heard some comparisons, and I'm kind of like Coach Saban. I kind of hate this, but I have heard Deron Payne. Now, Deron Payne is so incredibly good.
Yeah.
That's why he was the 13th overall pick by the Washington Redskins. But is that a comparison that's fair in regards to the size, the athleticism? Do you see some Deron Payne traits in DJ Dale?
You know, again, it's hard to tell. This guy's awfully young. I'm trying to think back to when Deron came out. You know, Deron had to lose some weight when he was in high school, and he chopped off a lot of weight before he got here. But he was so athletic and so quick and fast. I'm not sure that DJ has that athleticism and that speed and the quickness that Deron had, but very few do, Gary. But what he has is he has something to work with. He's a big, strong kid, really physical interior player. I think, again, when Scott Cochran gets a hold of him, he's got something to work with.
He does. A little quick tidbit on Deron Payne. You know, the Steelers drafted Josh Frazier, who didn't start here. And Carl Dunbar's the defensive line coach. You know what he said? Yeah. He said he'd have started anywhere else.
Yeah, he probably would have. Yeah.
You know, he said he's that good a player. It's just when you got Deron Payne, you know, you got a special player. All right, Dale is coming in, Rodney, but it looks like two Alabama players are headed out from the offensive line. Dallas Warmack announced his transfer last week, and Brandon Kennedy reportedly transferring today. These are two good interior offensive linemen. I remember when Kennedy came out of Wetumpka High School, it was a big celebration. They're both graduates, so good for them. They'll be able to transfer and play immediately. Now, I've always said, Rodney, Alabama has a blessing of offensive linemen, but you don't want to lose too many of them, and this is two, and possibility we're hearing of a third on the way. What does this mean for Alabama and the offensive line?
Depth. You always want that depth, Gary. You never know when you'll have a rash of injuries. They happen. Look what happened last year at the linebacker spot. They lost a lot of guys, and again, you never really know. So when you lose guys like Dallas Warmack, Brandon Kennedy, who've been in the program, have played some, certainly have gone through several years of practicing now and know the system, and guys that are, you know, potentially Brandon Kennedy was possibly the backup center.
That's what's surprising to me. To some degree, I'm surprised by Kennedy.
Yeah.
Not so much Dallas Warmack. I just think Dallas Warmack felt like he needed to go somewhere else to play. I thought Kennedy could factor in here. If not this year, then certainly next. So I'm surprised, and there's Warmack. But at the same time, Ronnie, you have to be honest, Alabama has recruited a lot of high-profile offensive linemen. There's a bunch of them on the roster. There's more committed for next year. And, you know, as I said, if a kid graduates and has an opportunity to move on to where he thinks he can have a better chance to play, I really can't blame him. You hate to see anybody leave the program, but at the same time, you know, as a young man, you have to look out for what's best for you too.
And they do have some guys still obviously on the roster that can provide depth. You know, Josh Casher comes to mind. It's a great opportunity for a guy like Richie Pettibone.
Chris Owens.
Chris Owens certainly is a guy.
Brown.
Deontay
Step
Brown.
up. Time to step up.
Emil Ekiyor is a true freshman coming in that I think's got a lot of ability.
All right, from transfers to other departures who are leaving for the reasons that all these guys want. The draft. Calvin Ridley, who bypassed his senior year to go into the draft where he was selected 26th overall in the first round by the Atlanta Falcons, who now have 2 former Alabama receivers for quarterback Matt Ryan to throw to. I think you know one of them is Julio Jones. And Ryan is appreciative of the Crimson Tide presence on the Falcons.
You know, I guess I'm an honorary Alabama quarterback now. That state's been good to me. UAB was pretty good with Roddy White, and Alabama's been very good too. So, you know, I'm very excited about Calvin coming here. I think he'll, be really good for our organization. But I'm excited about all the picks. I think our front office does such a good job of evaluating talent, along with our coaching staff, and having a real clear picture of what fits the system that we have on both sides of the ball and how to draft for that. And so they did a really good job with that. I'm excited about the team that we have coming into 2018.
And a couple of more Bama in the NFL notes. Former Heisman Trophy winner Mark Ingram, I'm really disappointed to hear this, suspended for the first 4 games of the season for PED, that's performance-enhancing drugs. He's a smart guy. I just can't imagine him doing that. He tried to fight it. Maybe he felt like he took something that was legal, but he lost his appeal. He'll now have to forfeit nearly $1 million of his 2018 salary, miss those first 4 games, and that's kind of clearing the way for Alvin Kamara. Don't be surprised if the Saints try to deal Mark Ingram. And Reuben Foster was back in court this morning out in California. The former Bama linebacker pled not guilty to 3 felony charges stemming from a February arrest for domestic violence. His preliminary hearing is set for next Thursday. That's very important because the judge then will make the determination whether to go ahead and send this thing to the jury and a jury trial. Well, still to come on Tider Insider Television, the Alabama baseball team broke a 10-game conference losing streak. That's the good news. Bad news is they lost the series to Mississippi State. Hear from head coach Brad Bohannon as the team preps for the last 2 weeks of the season. Plus, the SEC softball tournament starts tomorrow in Columbia, Missouri. We'll have the details on the Tide's first game, and it's against Auburn. Coming up, also, we'll get to your phone calls, emails, and tweets. As always, the phone number, 205-348-WVUA. That's 348-9882. Or you can email us at TITV@WVUA23.com or tweet at us using that hashtag TITV. We want to hear from you. The show that takes you inside the Crimson Tide. How many years now and counting, Rodney?
Almost 20.
Almost 20 years, and it's still going strong. Tider Insider Nation, thanks for tuning in. We're back after this.
I thought it was a really, really good series for us. Obviously, it's our first SEC sweep. Puts us obviously in the SEC tournament for the 22nd straight year, which is awesome. We're 22 for 22. So kudos to Team 22.
A lot of 22s there. 22nd Alabama softball team, 22 straight SEC tournaments. They're going to get to host a regional, too. I think the sweep of Texas A&M took care of that. And now it's SEC tournament time. As fate would have it, guess who's hosting? Missouri. Guess the one team that didn't make it into the tournament.
Missouri.
Ugh. 13 teams play softball. For some reason, Vanderbilt doesn't play it. Find a way to get them all in, all right? If you're going to take 12. But Alabama is already in Columbia. The Tide is the 8th seed and opens up tomorrow night against the 9 seed. And it's Auburn, who lately Alabama's had fits with them. I remember when Alabama used to beat them all the time. But Auburn won 2 out of 3 this year, won 2 out of 3 last year. The Tide, though, into the season strong, sweeping Texas A&M at home. And Rodney, we said all along, even though I got a little frustrated at 2 watching this team lose some games that I thought that they could have won, but that sweep of Texas A&M puts them in a great mindset. As I said, they're going to be a top 16 seed, which means they'll host a regional again. And, I think if they beat Auburn, they get Florida in that second game. But this is a team, somebody called my radio show and said, are they good enough? Yeah, they're good enough. Doesn't mean they're going to be, but they're good enough when they play their best to beat anybody, I think. Florida, Oklahoma, you line them up, I think they can beat anybody if they play to their potential. That's the key. Yep. Can they play well?
Well, the question to me is, you obviously, the sweep is great, but do you take the next step? Do you build on that? And I think that's really key.
Well, we'll find out beginning tomorrow night because I'm telling you, Auburn has had Alabama's number the last few years. And that's a big game because it's a tournament, but it's a big game, I think, for Alabama softball to beat Auburn and maybe to beat them handily. Well, the baseball team still has 2 more weeks of the regular season, but Alabama only has 1 win in its last 12 SEC games. Even so, in the SEC tournament is a long shot, still not mathematically out of it, but a long shot, but still. You can continue to play and you continue to improve as the season moves on. That's the focus now.
You know, we haven't gotten enough hits or made enough pitches or whatever, but the feel in the dugout doesn't change. Like our kids, they don't press, they don't get tight. It doesn't feel like if we have a 3 or 4 run lead and we give up a run or two, you don't have this feeling in the dugout of, oh my gosh, here we go again.
And baseball hosting Jacksonville State tonight. That game's underway. Remember, Jacksonville State shut them out about a month ago, 4-0 here at the Joe. We'll have highlights and reaction from Coach Bo tonight on the news at 10 WVUA 23. Well, the NBA Combine starts 1 week from today, and no surprise, former Alabama guard and likely lottery pick Colin Sexton was invited to Chicago for this big annual showcase. The last first-round pick from Alabama, Rodney, can you believe it's been Gerald Wallace?
Man, that was a while ago.
Wow, way back in 2001. Now, Colin Sexton's going to change that here soon. And we now know where Braxton Key is transferring to. This is a guy who flirted with going pro last year. Now he played his second year at Alabama, is going to sit out a year and be eligible to play at Virginia, not this coming season, but the season after that. I was told he wants to showcase his offensive skills at Virginia. Are you kidding me? I love Tony Bennett, but that's a defensive team. Still, though, this is a guy now all of a sudden putting his pro career off for a couple of years. Just didn't have a good year at Alabama. I was told he was unhappy. There were a lot of people saying that he might even quit during the season. So I wish Braxton Key well. Had a great freshman year. Sophomore year, not so much. I think this may be good for Alabama basketball as well. Coming up next, new contracts for the Alabama assistant football coaches. And let's just say that a lot of us these days would like to be an Alabama assistant football coach. We'll have the details. And next, we'll be welcoming your phone calls, emails, and tweets in on the program. Again, there's the information, 205-348-9882. Email us, tweet at us, whatever you want to do. Get in touch with us because we're coming back with you. Tider Insider Nation right after this timeout. Well, Alabama will actually pay out less to its football assistant coaches this year than it did last year, despite adding a 10th assistant coach to the staff. There are reasons for that. Dan Enos is still getting paid a lot of money by Arkansas. The assistant contracts were approved by the UA Board of Trustees this week. Obviously, the biggest salaries go to the new coordinators, Mike Loxley at $1.2 million, Tosh LeBoy at $1.1 million. So, $1.2 million. It's $100,000 a month. I think you can get by on that. Now, these guys are earning it, not saying they're not, but as I said before the break, it's a good time to be a college football assistant coach.
It really is. What is that? $200,000
he's going to pay $200,000 here, but like $800,000 from Arky. Yeah. So
third year it bumps up to, I think, $875,000.
Yeah, it goes on up then. But hey, Alabama saves some money in the short term. That's a good thing. All right, let's head to the phone lines, and Super Joe's up first with us. Hadn't heard from Super Joe in a while. What up, partner?
Hey, what's going on, Gary? Rodney, everything rolling right with you?
Yeah, it's all gravy, man. All gravy.
Yeah, it's all good. I tell you, how many more commitments do we expect by this month, for Alabama?
All right, Super Joe, Rodney is the man that knows. I know there's that big defensive lineman that's going to commit later this month that Alabama hopes to get up against Georgia and Penn State for him, and maybe a couple others that are.
And Antonio Alfano from up in New Jersey. Yeah. And, man, he's really good. Yeah. He's really good, really, really good. And Joe, really, it's really sometimes difficult unless these guys plan it out and announce they're going to make their decision. It's kind of difficult to predict the timing of all of these things. But, Gary, there's wouldn't surprise me if another 1 or 2 dropped.
Wouldn't surprise me either. They're rolling. They're back when it comes to recruiting. Bama's back. Imagine that, like they ever went away. But when you sign a 6th or 7th ranked class around here, remember when the 6th or 7th ranked class
celebrated?
Would
have celebrated.
Now it's a disappointment.
Yeah.
But they're going to be back at 1 or 2. All right, let's go talk. You had Super Joe. Now we get John from Bessemer. John from Bessemer, what you got tonight, man?
What's going on, buddy?
Hey, bro.
Hey, man, how we doing in recruit? What reason I'm calling is Alabama. How many recruits we get for this year and next year, man?
All right, John. That's another part of the good news of this equation. 12 commitments already. Last year, Alabama was limited by the size of the class, and I still think they kind of botched it a little bit. They left too many scholarships available for that second signing period, and then couldn't fill them, and actually wound up having 1 or 2 left over. But This year, it looks like it's going to be a bigger class, and they don't look like they're having any problems filling it.
Yeah, I think the early signing period, everyone was trying to figure out exactly how that was going to work, and I think probably Alabama adjusted. You know, Gary, and talking about the end, Alabama, the end of the recruiting class there going into February, I mean, they had some guys that were telling them they were coming, and they just went elsewhere.
Yeah, it happens, even to Alabama. All right, Jason's in Brilliant. Jason, how you doing, my friend?
I'm doing fine, y'all. Y'all got your hypothetical crystal ball handy?
Yeah, it's always available, buddy. We carry it with us everywhere.
60% of the defense, especially the secondary. What do you think the secondary is going to look like this?
All right. Well, Jason, it's going to be a brand new secondary. Obviously, they lost 6 players to the NFL. I don't know if all those guys will make it in the league, but they're going to have an opportunity. Clearly, Deontay Thompson is going to be at one of the safeties. Savion Smith and Trayvon Diggs probably the inside track at corner. But still, a lot of new faces back there. How you see it playing out?
A lot of new faces, but I'm going to tell you this, too. I think one thing about this defense, they're going to have a really good pass rush when you're talking about Terrell Lewis.
That always helps, doesn't it?
Anthony Jennings. Like Keith Jackson said, you know, they can't throw it if they're on the ground. And, you know, when you look at the pass rush, I think it's going to be outstanding. But the secondary, I really like Xavier McKinney at the safety spot back there with Deontay Thompson. I think he's going to be an excellent player. And some of these guys that are coming in this recruiting class, you mentioned Savion Smith, who obviously went through spring practice. But Patrick Surtain, Eddie Smith, Jalen Armour-Davis, Joshua Jobe. I mean, those guys are very, very talented players who are going to have an opportunity to contribute.
Yeah, I've heard on McKinney, I'm like you, I've heard a little bit of Landon Collins, thumper. Yeah. You know, when Landon Collins hit you, you stayed hit.
Yeah, he did. He did.
It's the same way with this guy. All right, the women's golf team roared up the standings at this week's NCAA Regional. Find out where the Tide stands after 2 rounds. And more of your phone calls, emails, and tweets. Brandon and Trent are in there getting the phone calls lined up, and lines are available at 205-348-WVUA. That's 348-9882, or you can email us there. Of course, tweet at us too. Use that hashtag TITV so we can find it. If you tweet directly at me, I may get to check my phone, I may not, but tweet using the hashtag TITV, and we'll get you on. We're back with more after this. Alabama women's golf shot 12 under today at the Tallahassee Regional, and that vaulted the Tide into first place. They're really, really good. The top 6 teams advanced to the NCAA championships. I don't think that's an issue for Bama. Will they win it? We'll find out tomorrow, as Bama is in great, great shape. All right, and the men's team begins its regional next week all the way out in Stockton, California. So they got to travel across the country, but they'll be ready to go. All right, let's go right back to the phone lines. Fred is next up here in Tuscaloosa. Hey, Fred.
How y'all doing, man?
Outstanding, man.
All right. I called last week and I was talking about the quarterbacks, but this time I'm talking about the running backs and the depth at running back, and because I talked about Robinson last week, but the depth at running back and the depth at linebacker inside. And if I want to say this right quick, Coach Saban, why we don't have a streak with Coach Saban's name on it like Coach Bryant? I know.
All right. All right, Fred, yeah, well, it's coming. I'm telling you, it'll be coming. Running back, since you're right, we did touch on last week, pretty simple. You got Damian Harris, 2-time 1,000-yard rusher. You got Najee Harris. You got Josh Jacobs. You got Brian Robinson. You're loaded. Okay? Embarrassment of riches. Best running back corps in the country. Inside linebackers, now that is an area, too, where they're looking to build some depth, Rodney.
Yeah, obviously, that's a big key, I think, getting depth there. You've got Dylan Moses and Mack Wilson, who I think are going to be 2 of the elite inside linebackers in the entire country. I think they're outstanding. The question is, what's behind them? And I think that's a key, Gary. They certainly cannot afford any injuries on the inside, but Markel Benton's a young redshirt freshman. I think had a really good spring, showed some signs. Josh McMillan's been around a while. They've got a true freshman coming in that I think there's a lot of people are really impressed with. Jalen Moody. He was not very highly recruited, but he's a guy that I think has got a lot of people's attention.
All right. And, Fred, all that stuff with Saban's name on it, it's coming. Just be patient. All right, let's go to Bluff Park and talk to Rick. Hey, Rick, how's it going, man?
Hey, fellas, how y'all doing?
Well.
Appreciate you taking my call. I'd like to ask about the trio of 5-star defensive tackles that Alabama has been associated with, and also how will the new fair catch rule in college football, will that put a premium on rugby-style punters? And I'd like to hang on and listen to your response.
Yeah, well, the fair catch rule as far as the coming out to 25 is only for the kickoffs. Punting will still be the same, but I hate it, to give you the short version. And it will change the way kickoffs are handled. There's no doubt about it. As far as those 5-star defensive tackles, you mentioned one already, or 4-star.
Ishmael Sopsher out of Louisiana. Obviously, you have Fatui Tuitele out of Honolulu, Hawaii, and I'm not sure which other one you're referring to because I really don't even know exactly who all's rated 5-star, whatever, but you have 3 great ones in Mississippi, Nathan Pickering, Byron Young, Jaron Handy, that Alabama's in on very, very closely, Gary. So, again, we mentioned Alfano. He's a 6'4", 285-pound defensive lineman. I think Alabama's going to could have the #1 defensive line class in the country. And I'm pretty sure about this, I think they're going to have the best offensive line class in the country too.
Wow. O-line, D-line,
yep,
you're good there.
That's where you win.
It still is. It's still where you win in the SEC. All right, I got to get a tweet, Rod. This is from Miss Livin. What have you heard about Coach Rashilla's future, and do you know if softball is recruiting pitchers? On Coach Brian Rashilla, nothing still official from the University of Alabama, but Tide Sports article last week that Coach Duckworth did not renew his contract. I don't know what he's going to do. I didn't know him that well. I didn't know him to be a class act. I'm surprised at how this was handled. I'm surprised that nothing, to be honest with you, has still come out from the university, any kind of release. 22 years. To me, you deserve better than to have to read about it. You're told, but for us to have to find out about it in an article instead of a release from the university, he'll do well. He's a great coach. He's got a great track record. As far as pitching, Alabama has a commitment from Lexi Kilfoyle out of Land O'Lakes, Florida. She's a Team USA member. She's 6'1". She can bring the heat. Yeah, she's going to be really, really good. And Alabama's looking for pitching. Lexi Kilfoyle, remember her name. All right, still to come, over 100 Alabama athletes graduated this past weekend, but it was a trio of former football players that spent extra time with Coach Saban. We'll have the story when we come back. Also, thanks for those phone calls, emails, and tweets. More of the Crimson Tide, Tider Insider after this. How cool is this? Caleb Holcomb's only 11 years old, but he was drafted by the Alabama men's tennis team last week. He was diagnosed with a debilitating disease when he was born. So this was organized by Team Impact to give Holcomb a special experience. It was. And George Husak and the Tide tennis team jumped at the opportunity. Great stuff. Plenty of current and former Alabama athletes traded their uniforms for caps and gowns this past weekend at graduation celebrations at the UA. That included 3 former football players who are all in the NFL but still earned their degrees. HaHa Clinton-Dix, Amari Cooper, and Derrick Henry all came back while tearing it up in the NFL. Man, that's a great picture. And for us, we're tearing it up in the locker room every week with original elephant wear and more available. Go downtown, check them out in person, or also shop on net. For Rodney Orr, I'm Gary Harris. Good night.